1. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the January 25th meeting of the City of Port Colborne Council. We're doing something a little different this evening due to COVID. We're all in our own homes. So please bear with us if we do have any technical difficulties, but I think everything has been worked out, and we'll move on from here. So I'd like to call this meeting to order, and at this time call on Madam Deputy Clerk for the National Anthem. Thank you to the McKay Choir. At this time, I'd like to read the following. Niagara Region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nation, Métis, Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The City of Port Colborne stands with the Indigenous peoples, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. There are no proclamations this evening. We do have adoption of the agenda, and this is as amended. We are removing item 8.1 and item 20.1 under the bylaws section. So if we can move this as amended, if I can have Councilors Bruno and Danch move that. Are there any questions with regards to the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. And that's carried. I do not have any disclosures of interest yet, Councilors. Are there any that haven't been declared so far? Seeing none, thank you. Approval of the minutes. We have the regular meeting of council from December the 13th, 2021. I'll have Councilors Bagu and Claylough move that. Any questions on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Items pulled this evening are items 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, 8.6, 8.7, 8.8, and 9.3. Are there any further items that need to be pulled? Okay. So we'll vote on the balance of those items that weren't pulled. If I can have Councilors Wells and Bagu move that. Are all, oh, no questions. All those in favor of those that haven't been pulled, please raise your hand. And that's carried. There are no presentations this evening. There are no delegations. I'll move into the mayor's report. As a result of the additional public health measures enacted on January the 5th, 2022, the province is beginning to see signs of stabilization in key public health and health system indicators. Percent positivity has fallen and new admissions to the hospital have started to stabilize, and lengthy stays have been shortened considerably. Over the coming days and weeks, these trends are expected to continue, allowing the province to begin cautiously easing public health measures. In the absence of concerning trends in public health and healthcare indicators, Ontario will follow a cautious and phased approach to lifting public health measures. Effective January the 31st, Ontario will begin the process of gradually easing restrictions while maintaining protective measures, including but not limited to increasing social gathering limits to 10 people indoors and 25 people outdoors, increasing or maintaining capacity limits at 50% in indoor public settings, including restaurants, retailers, malls, recreation, and fitness facilities, and more. Then every subsequent 21 days, we are hopeful that more restrictions will be lifted and capacities will be increased. We encourage you to go to ontario.ca to view the full list that is being proposed by the province. You may have noticed that the city has again brought out several of the 15-minute time limit parking spaces in our downtown cores. And this is to ensure you can easily access our businesses that are offering takeout and curbside service. We are also holding a contest for anyone who orders takeout from a Port Colborne restaurant between January 21st to the 30th, and either post a photo of their takeout order on the city's Facebook contest page. They tag us in a public post on social media, or email the photo to a communications officer at portcolborne.ca, along with mentioning the restaurant you ordered from. You will be entered into a contest to win a $75 gift certificate from a Port Colborne restaurant of your choice. As you also know, our hospital system has been deeply affected by COVID-19, resulting in the recent temporary closure of the urgent care center at Douglas Memorial Hospital in Fort Erie. So staff could be redeployed to other units dealing with an overwhelming number of patients. I had the opportunity to speak with Lynn Guerrero, CEO of Niagara Health, on January the 4th about the situation and specifically about our urgent care center in Port Colborne. Lynn assured me at that time that there were no immediate plans to close our urgent care center. However, depending on how this virus continues, she indicated that Niagara Health will act quickly to redeploy staff if shortages in healthcare workers at other sites reach critical limits. I know that may not sound reassuring to some, but I believe we are nearing the peak of the wave, and I'm confident in the leadership at Niagara Health to do what is best for the residents of Niagara. The weekend of February the 11th and 12th would traditionally be our Sports Fest, citywide. With capacity limits currently in place, the city has had to curtail plans to encourage gathering, whether inside for events such as volleyball, hockey, chili cook-off, music trivia, and outside events such as snow pitch and snow golf. Plans are underway for a virtual presentation of new inductees into our Sports Wall of Fame at the Valley Health and Wellness Center. More information will be provided on our website, or subscribe to our virtual newsletter and hear it first from the City of Port Colborne. The other interesting thing that came out over after the last storm a week ago Monday was the fact that if you received a ticket, you can get that waived if you present us with a receipt from a local restaurant. So if you did receive a ticket, you do have that receipt in that timeline. Please go to our website. It'll give you more details. But I do want to congratulate our staff for again thinking outside the box and getting people motivated to help our businesses here during this latest shutdown. So that ends my mayor's report. I ask everyone, thank you, and specifically, please stay safe. Any questions, council? Seeing none, we'll go on to the regional councilor's report. Councilor Butters. I'll be bringing Barb in here. Good evening, councilor. Hope you're nice and warm at home tonight.
I am, Mayor Steele. I'm nice and cozy. I got the heater on beside me in the porch. It's all good.
Good stuff. Well, yeah. Take your regional report. Go ahead.
Well, I'll be brief tonight. I want you all to know though that the Niagara Impact Awards, which was introduced last year, is opened up again, and the Niagara Impact Awards helps recognize and celebrate individuals, businesses, and organizations who've made significant efforts to help build a more resilient and welcoming community. The Niagara Impact Awards showcase those who offer a helping hand in order to make a living in Niagara better for others. Last year, winners represented a diverse group of residents who contributed in various ways to help their neighbors, local businesses, and the larger community. Award recipients made a meaningful impact on Niagara's social economic well-being as well as the overall health of Niagara. So the nominations will close on February 14th, so they just opened. And the award recipients will be announced at the end of March. And I'm just going to give you the Jim Bradley's words here. As for the generosity, selflessness, and compassion of Niagara's residents never fails to impress me, I am pleased to announce that nominations are open for the 2022 Niagara Impact Awards. After revisiting last year's outstanding group of recipients and honorable mentions, I'm eager to see another comparable list of residents just as deserving of recognition. I encourage everyone to consider those individuals, nonprofits, and businesses who made a difference in their lives over the past year. And please submit an application by the February 14th. So I'm going to encourage you all to put on your thinking caps, and I hope other people may be tuned in might want to nominate someone and send that into the region. Imagine how you brighten someone else's day by doing that, and it really does spread a bit of cheer around, and we could all use some of that. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I don't really have anything else for tonight, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Any questions to the regional councillor? Seeing none, Barb, again, pleasure having you here at City of Port Colborne.
Thank you. Have a good meeting, guys.
Thanks, and we'll see you down at the region.
Yep.
Okay, next is staff remarks. Any remarks from staff? Normally I would go to the CAO and clerk's department. Do either of you have anything? I'll start with you normally. I don't see anybody there. Director Bowles, I'll go to you.
Thank you. Through yourself to council. Just a quick update. We had a little glitch with the printing of the water bills. So some people may have recognized that they haven't received their water bill yet. They'll be out, if not by the end of the day tomorrow, we'll be mailing them the following day, and we'll be extending the payment terms. One of those technology issues as we rolled the year end, and I apologize to that to council and the community.
Great, thank you, Director Bowles. Any other staff members? Seeing none. Okay, council. Councilor's remarks. I'll start with Councilor Clayle.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to, first of all, I had several calls regarding snow removal, as I'm sure we all did when things were going on. And I'm so happy to say that by the time I was even able to contact anyone to look into them, for the most part, the snow had been removed. And in many cases, the community came out, neighbors came out, helped people. And people contacting when I got back to them to tell them what was going on, they would tell me how pleased they were that the things had been looked after so quickly, and that their neighbors had come to the rescue. So I think we really pulled together through this past snowstorm, and I want to thank everyone, staff and community, for that. And the other piece of it is also the water main breaks. I know I've had a few calls about those, people pretty upset, but at the same time, you know, I'm trying to explain to them that staff is everywhere. They're doing everything possible. It always comes back to that question, well, you know, we didn't know if we could have been notified. So I'm encouraging all the community that if you're in this type of a situation and you need to know something, and you have access to computers, and you have a neighbor that's elderly or neighbors that don't have computers and you know of, let them know. Let them know what's going on. Get in touch with them. Take care of each other, because I think that's the way we're going to get through all of this, because I wouldn't have want to been on any of those work crews Monday or Tuesdays working on those water main breaks. And kudos to staff. I'm thrilled to see that everything's been repaired at the moment. And I just wanted to mention, I wanted to offer my sincerest condolences to the family of Joel Longfellow. He passed away on Saturday, and I know many of you knew him. I know he sang many times at council for many different events, and I just wanted to offer my sincere condolences. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor Steele. I have two items. two remarks. The first one is dealing with construction that has been happening along the shorelines in Ward 4, and the use of the road allowances and the gates and that. And I know Director Kawamoto has been involved with it and has seen some of the things. I was just wondering if Director Kawamoto could give us an update on where those constructions stand, what is being done to inform potential residents of issues with heavy equipment moving down along the roadways.
Mr. Kawamoto?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the council, all councils and those watching at home, we will be moving forward with the lock changes with regard to the gates. The construction that has been happening throughout this winter continues to do so, and contractors are recommended to come and speak with the city staff, specifically in engineering, if there are any works that do require any access to those swing gates at the end of the road ends. So they are locked. With any municipal consents, if required, a key will be given to the contractor per the policy. And then the contractor, once approved for their MCs, would be able to open the gates and continue on with their work. So thank you for the councilor for reminding us. We will be moving ahead with that. Before we do change the locks, we will be doing a communication outreach with the communications department, give them a few weeks to get the word out, and then be changing the gates. We won't do it just all of a sudden. There will be some work to be done, and then we'll continue with that process.
Great. Thank you, Director Kawamoto. Councilor Wells.
Thank you. That was great. One other remark, and that's in regards to a coyote hunting contest. I brought this to Chief Lawson's attention because I had received a number of complaints regarding the behavior of some of the hunters and how they were trespassing on private properties, and their actions with their weapons being reckless and that. So I brought this to Chief Lawson's attention just so that he was aware of it and that he could get an update. And I was wondering if he would be able to give us a more current update as of today. I noticed that even today I had 3 coyotes go through my property. So, but if Chief Lawson could give us an update, that'd be great.
Thanks, Councilor. Chief Lawson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. Thank you for your question, Councilor Wells. We did have a conversation with Niagara Regional Police, the Port Colborne district, and they have had a couple complaints. They've been out, they've talked to the hunters, and during their visits with those hunters, they had no concerns. Everybody seemed to be doing what they were supposed to be doing. We also reached out to Ministry of Natural Resources, who actually takes care of the hunting rules and regulations. They're going to step up their patrols of the Port Colborne area and specifically the area that was in question. But they did ask that all complaints go through NRP and the MNR, as that's their jurisdiction to deal with.
Councilor.
Thank you. I'd just like to emphasize the fact that it should go through the MNR or the Niagara Regional Police, because we are dealing with individuals with firearms, and our staff are not prepared to handle that and shouldn't have to be addressing that. So again, I would just like to make sure that everybody understands, if you have an issue like that, please call the proper authorities on that one. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Baggett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm good this week. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Demarang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing this week either.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize for my background. It seems to have just disappeared, so I'll have it repaired for the next meeting. One issue to start with. we've seen in the paper where Welland has just come through with their short-term rental agreement. And I just was wondering if we're still on track to get ours done, and probably through you to the clerk maybe that's handling that.
Great. Thank you, Counselor. Madam Clerk?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, we still are on track to come to a meeting in February. I suspect it will be the second meeting in February, so that council can make a decision regarding short-term rentals.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
And just to follow up on Councillor Wells' question about the construction on the road ends, and Mr. Calamato's response about lock changes. And I imagine it'll be in the communique, but just before people start calling Harry and I all the time about the locks, it was done because it's taking a lot of time from staff that has to go out and investigate when the contractors don't come to City Hall first and tell them what's going on. That's what they're supposed to do. So in changing the locks, and we certainly can revisit that when the road end study comes out, I would imagine. But anyways, just to give you some background, that it's costing a lot of staff time and the city money. So that is a solution that should correct the contractor's actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. You're all set?
Yep.
Good, thank you. Counselor Danch?
Thanks for that. Just a couple points this week. We've got the Erie Street water main, we have Erie Street water main breakups going on again, but we've got the construction getting closer and closer. They've dropped off leaflets in people's homes about inspections. I'm a resident of Neff Street. Live right on the corner of Erie and Neff, so I'm at the end of it all. These guys have already been to my house. They've inspected my home. You have to let them in, and you can decide what you want them to do. My own home, I said basement only. Okay. I have another rental on Neff Street. Same deal. Different, or same guy, same day, right? They do accommodate you. So take them downstairs, let them take their pictures. They can record what they have to do. We all need to get together on this. I don't think they're looking to interfere with your lifestyle or check up on what you're doing. They're basically looking at your foundation cracks in the floors. They just want to kind of CYA what's going to happen in the very near future. It's well overdue. And I just want Erie Street residents to know that we're trying to get this done. We had a break at between Georgia and Neff this past weekend. The water was all over the place, slip and falls, all that kind of stuff. Let these guys in. Let's get this done. And it's taken a long time, but we need to get this fixed. So that's one piece. The second one, I just want to echo on Harry's part there with the coyotes. I've been getting calls as well. These little furry creatures are out there, and I did a little Google inspection myself today. First of all, they don't like humans. Okay, they don't want nothing to do with you. That's all there is to it. If you can leave some exterior lighting on your home, they don't like lights. They don't like noise. Leave a radio on. Generally, like a talk show, not passive music and stuff like that. The animals don't like that stuff. I've had calls from Merritt Parkway, Northland, and Highway 58 on the island, behind the old Duke's Hotel and stuff like that. They're animals. They run free. I guess you have to be careful with smaller pets. That little foo-foo in the backyard, or that small cat, he seems inviting. So you might want to watch your animals and just be cautious. I didn't realize Harry had the problems with the guy shooting him and that. I guess that's an option, but coyotes, they have a way of filling their their group and stuff like that. You take out 3, they'll produce 3 more. So anyways, I know the coyotes are a problem. I just wanted to bring that up. I did have a couple calls, and that's it for me for this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Just to pivot off of Frank there for a second, I had a couple calls from Erie Street residents who got the notice and have had the knock, and they were pleased. They understood it. I think they're just all, as Frank has said and I've said for the last year, they're just eager to see the job start and to get out from under. So looking forward to that, and thank the residents for their patience. I'd also like to thank, I had a call from 2 different citizens, sort of in the Shamrock Bartok area and the other over on King Street, complimentary about the work of our staff on plows, sidewalks. Chris, please pass that along. I passed along one letter. It was actually an email, a gentleman who had visited other municipalities and said that was very enlightening as to where we were at in Port Colborne that day and at the end of the day. And he hadn't actually noticed that before, but just by chance he was driving through the peninsula on business, and actually at work, and noticed that and brought it to my attention, and to pass along the thanks that when you do the comparative test, we do a great job here in Port on the snow plowing and sidewalks. So kudos, Chris, to you and your staff. Just a reminder, the Port Colborne Community Fund is going to have over $40,000 in its first tranche. The deadline is January 31st at midnight. The forms for nonprofits and other groups who want to participate, many of you may have had or know groups that have had some setbacks due to COVID. They may want to do some improvement. They haven't been able to do fundraisers. They haven't had fees, and yet they still have some operating expenses. Those special circumstances are things that the committee will look at. No guarantee, but we're certainly want to get the word out again. You can find that Port Colborne Community Fund application on the city's website. If you go to City Hall, the drop down will be applications, and the drop down will show grants. And if you go to that, you can either print out the application, email it in. The address and particulars are there. You can drop it off at City Hall in the drop box before February 1st. But particularly, I'd like to pick out, sports groups, church groups, all of those that may have been impacted by COVID. Please at least have a look at that application. And if there's a way that the community fund can help with respect to capital needs, things to create sustainability, cost savings, lighting efficiencies, all those things are on the application form. But I'd encourage you all to have a look. And third and finally, wanted to speak through you to Chris, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Kawamoto. I'm just wondering about the incidences of late of the frozen pipes, particularly yesterday. One of the things that some of the press release that we got came out, and I had a drive-by late last night to look at post-construction, post-repair, and I didn't notice that it was mains and that the streets that I went down weren't torn up, but they looked like the sides, meaning potentially laterals going to the private water line. So, Chris, I'm just wondering if is the notice when it says mains necessarily mean that it is the main water main, or in some cases, is it laterals? And I'm wondering if you know what that mix was. And if you don't, if you could get back to us, maybe.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, just for clarification, is it when we notify of water main breaks?
Yes, we all got a email from Michelle on that, and it generally says mains, but sometimes those terms get get interchanged. And I'm just wondering if you could give us any kind of clarification on that.
Yes, through Mr. Mayor to the councilor. Thank you for the question. When we do report out to the councilors and do post on our website with regard to breaks, it is usually the water main breaks. However, there have been some historical private water laterals that have also frozen. So we do have some communication with regard to those on our website. I see that Manager Sutter is on the call here. Maybe she can give a little bit more information when it comes to both of those, but hopefully this provides some clarification for those two different aspects of our water system.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sutter?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bruno. Yeah, I was actually out on site yesterday on some of the breaks. The reason they probably appear off to the side is that's where the water main was located. The one on a couple of the ones on Steele, the one on Omer, that's the side of the street the water main was on. We don't normally distinguish whether it's a usually it's a main. These were all main breaks. Okay. We do sometimes say, actually, I have seen in the past, we have said that we're on site repairing a leaking service. So if it's on the city side and we're working on a service, we have often said that. Unfortunately, it does the same thing. We have to shut the water down to make the repair. So it's kind of a moot point of whether it's a main break or a service repair. And as far as communications about frozen services, we did, in anticipation of the cold temperatures, we did put a release on our website to remind residents to take steps to prevent frozen plumbing. Because we had received some phone calls in the last couple of weeks, and we had the first big cold snap about frozen plumbing in their properties. And we advised them of our frozen pipes policy that council passed back in 2015, I believe it was, on what steps to take if you discover you have no water.
Thank you, Darlene. The last and final question is sort of perhaps you crystal balling it, Chris or Darlene, but I noted that the breaks were relatively concentrated in a certain area. If you look at the press release, right, it was Steele between, right, or south of Steele, Maine to Wallace, and off Steele, right, at Oakwood to Knoll. And I'm wondering if it's too early to come to either any conclusions or supposition that, does that indicate that that could be an area of an aged or weakened pipe? Is there anything to read into that concentrated area at this stage? Either one of you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruno. Actually, we are going to be doing a postmortem of the event with our staff and with regional staff. We also were quite surprised at the concentration and the of the breaks in one location. So we'll be looking at all the aspects. You want to see if there's any operating things at the region that may have been impacting it, because of course it's like living next to an elephant. If they sneeze, we catch the cold. So we want to see what's been happening. And I've already been talking with my regional counterpart, and in the next week or so, we'll be scheduling a meeting to see what we can come up with. And hopefully we'll find, we might not know exactly what happened, but at least we'll have, at least we've looked into it and seen what we can, because this, I've been here 13 years. I've never had this happen in 24 hours.
Great. Thank you both very much. That's it,
Great.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, staff. Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing tonight.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Beauregard.
I have no remarks as well.
Great. Thank you. Perfect, Council. And thank you, staff, for those answers. On to items requiring separate discussion. First item is item 8.2, the Friendship Trail Standard Crossing and Signage. And the recommendation is that Public Works Department Report 2022-16 be received. The council approved the new crossing standard as shown in Exhibit A and Appendix A to Public Works Department Report 2022-16. The council approved the new configuration for existing wigwag trail crossings as shown in Exhibit B in Appendix A to Public Works Department Report 2022-16. And the council approved the installation of a new signage board and wayfinding at each crossing of the Friendship Trail as shown in Exhibit C in Appendix A to Public Works Department Report 2022-16. I'll have Councilors Bagu and Wells move that. And I'll go to Councilor Bagu first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple questions. For enforcement of the violations, people misusing, like example, golf cart or motorcycle or snowmobile, what is the actual fine for, if anybody can ever catch any of these people, what is the actual fine for the violation?
Chief Lawson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, I'll have to research that one. I off the top of my head, I do not know.
Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. I should have said that in earlier to Chief Lawson. Basically, by reading some of the emails, especially Mr. Comfort, who said in the addendum today, I'm not a fan of the wigwags, to tell you the truth. I am in very much favor of blocking off as much as we can to prevent, example, the golf carts. I know we're not going to get the motorcycles and the snowmobiles in the wintertime. They can cross over ditches and everything else and all that stuff. But that was just my only comment, Mr. Mayor, and about the violation, the fine violation. I know by law can't. It's tough for by law. Maybe they can catch a golf cart on the next road over, but they're not going to catch any other violators. And I looked at other municipalities in Canada, and nobody seems to want to say they have a problem with motorized vehicles on their trails. So it was real hard to research it out as much as I could. I spent over an hour on the internet looking, but that's all I got, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did a little bit of work on this over the weekend, and I've shared that with Director Kalamoto, and he has been responsive to some of those items that I've provided. But I do think that this report has some room for improvement, for inclusion of other things, and at this point in time, I think the options are somewhat limited. Like Councillor Bagu, I'm not really in favor of wigwags, but the whole purpose of this is for safety for the cyclists on the trails, as well as motorists on the roads. And I think that what has been proposed does not quite give us or give me the safety requirements that could prevent some serious injuries. We've had some significant injuries on the trail by motorized vehicles that should not be on the trail. We've had some near misses, and I believe some accidents with cyclists hitting cars on the roadways. And it boils down to a behavioral approach by the cyclist. If they were stopping at the roads, we probably wouldn't be in this position. But what I see is proposed, I don't think that will slow down or stop any of the cyclists or prevent any of the motorized vehicles from entering the trails, if that's even possible. But I do think we need to look a little deeper on this, do a little bit more on this, get a little bit more input from some of the residents, from some of the people that are not cyclists in regards to this report. And I do thank Director Kalamoto for looking at mine and taking into consideration the work that I put forward to him on this. So just a comment, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Wells. Just for those, I know Councillor Borgard and Demaray have their hands up. There is a speaker's list, so you guys are on my list now. So, but you can leave your hands up. I'll go to Councillor Bruno next.
Thank you, Worship. I'll try not to repeat what my two learned colleagues have said, but I think this is situation of the don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I'm not so sure we can solve all the problems there, has been reiterated, but I think there's one that we can resolve, and I'd like to see that it's not forgotten in this debate tonight, and to Mr. Kalamoto's department, and if he has any comments with this question, please come forward. One of the things is we've done a terrific job on cleaning up the sight lines, and that's hugely important for safety. My one concern that can be, I think, to a high level, be prevented, but it might cost some money, and that is the area between on the left of the trail and the right side of the trail entrance to the various roadways. From there back to any adjoining farmers fencing, that what I'll call the go around the bollards or the go around the wigwags and get on the trail. I think with either those large concrete blocks with perhaps some whether they're metal or aluminum poles on them so people don't hit them when they're covered in a snowbank. But I'd like to see those sneak in points on the trail be covered as best as possible. Because at least from my point of view, if you can stop 8 four-wheelers and three-wheelers and snowmobiles, you may have to live with a bollard system that lets the cyclist through, but also doesn't stop the motorcycle. But, sometimes 3 out of 4 aren't bad as a batting average. And so I'm just wondering if we can, I'm for keeping that accessible to handicapped. I'm for letting the cycles have a free route out with the bollard option. And I think that means potentially the wigwags are gone. But at the end of the day, again, I don't think we can make this perfect, but I think we have to remember the fact that this is a circle route. It's a cycling trail. It's a walking trail. And I'm not so sure other communities, correct me if I'm wrong, have wigwags or major encumbrances. Because I'm assuming that cyclists taking the circle route or just the Friendships Trail are trying to go end to end. I haven't seen much of the trail other than part of the Welland Parkway Trail, which a lot of it doesn't have crossroads, but certainly in Fort Erie, it seems to be relatively wide open. And so I just like to see the best we can with those sneak in points, and then we can deal with one of the options tonight. So, Mr. Kalamoto, I don't know what's your take on being able as best as possible to do the entrance off the roadways angularly back to usually farmers' fences to prevent that come around. Is that conceivable with concrete, those large concrete blocks? Usually see them with the wire or iron through them that are dropped off. Just wondering what your take is on that.
Director Kalamoto.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. There wouldn't be a particularly standard, which is what we're presenting here today. Those would be one-offs depending on the geography of the crossing, where the fences are, how much room there is. So it wouldn't necessarily be a standard, but it is definitely something that we can take back as direction from council and take a look to see if we can minimize the alternative routes off the path that motorized vehicles would access. Again, as the previous councillor mentioned, it may not be able to get all of those motorized vehicles off, motorcycles as an example, those enduros, I guess, because they can sneak through areas where our normal bikes can. However, if we're taking a look at the side of those crossings, we can definitely come up with something. Fencing and wire is not necessarily the way. Again, in limited light, somebody could get very hurt on those. It's more of a visual warning that would need to be done, such as the boulders, as Councillor mentioned. But we can definitely take that as direction from council and take a look to see what each of the individual crossings might be able to do.
Great.
Thank you very much. Do you need a motion from us, or is this fine?
No, I think Mr. Kalamuta can take that direction to staff with regards to this.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Going towards the end, most of the questions have been brought up, but I've got a couple that I think you should consider. I just wonder whether we can get the total number of accidents that have happened at intersections on the whole circle route, the ones that involve cyclists and cars, just to get an idea on how prevalent the accidents are. I know I've been frightened the odd time. This is before we cleared the brush. I think that, well, first of all, let's see if we can get that information. And I also think clearing the brush so that cyclists can see cars, cars can see cyclists, everybody makes a decision, and then you got to be pretty stupid if you go through. Saying that, I wonder if, I know staff have done a very good job right now, but can we even do a little more to open up those sight lines, just more than what staff have done already or had hired to be done? The other thing is the stop signs we're putting up on the trail at the intersections. Are they a legal stop sign? Are people obligated to stop, or is that just a suggestion that they should stop? Does anybody know that?
Mr. Kalamuta?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, as those particular stop signs aren't in our bylaw at the time, they are a highly recommended, highly suggested, just like most of the off the road stop signs are. However, what I can do for this particular question and the first one with regard to number of accidents along the route, I can reach out to Niagara Regional Police and see if there have been examples of that, and again, what the numbers are with regard to accidents along the trails and the intersections of the roads, and get back to the councillors on that.
Sure, good. And one more thing. As many of you know, I have a disability and I have a limited walking ability, and I've been looking at the electric wheelchair, and they make some pretty neat off-road wheelchairs now. Are they allowed on the trail?
Mr. Kalamoto?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Again, it is a walking and cycling trail for those that do have limited ability, and their opportunity to enjoy that trail must come with such a device, then that would be allowed.
Okay, great. All right, I think we all have brought up some pretty good ideas, and I'm not going to use the R word here until everybody's had a chance to speak. So whoever's last, that's a suggestion. There you go.
That's fine.
Thanks.
Councillor Clayla. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clayla.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Kalamuto. I was reading through the information you sent us, and I found it very interesting. I just had a question for you, and I have, I didn't think that the bigwigs were AODA compliant. Do you know? I could be totally wrong. I'm not sure, but I had looked through a lot of the readings, and it seemed like we were one of the very few that have them. Do you know that?
Through the mayor to the count.
Yep.
Thank you.
I see Mr. Salas is on. Do you want to go to Mr. Salas on this, Chris?
Yes, I do. I'll defer to Mr. Salas, and then maybe if I can add to it, or if Technologist Durant would like to add to it before I step in.
Okay, great. Mr. Salas, I'll take it away.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. the AODA regulations is pretty much embedded into the Ontario traffic manual. So basically, sorry, come up with the question again.
The wigwags, are they AOD?
So the wigwags is actually mentioned in the OTM manual. They're pretty much not suggested by the OTM manual because they consider it to be a hazard. Now, as far as AODA requirements in terms of spacing, basically what we require is only a 1.8 meters to comply with passage for AODA. But specifically on the OTM manual, it's not called wigwag, pretty much it's called a P gate because it looks like a letter P. But again, specifically the manual doesn't really suggest or recommending putting those gates because they're viewed as a hazard to cyclists and as a hazard as far as people with disabilities. Now, I know that our report kind of go against a little bit and try to take the middle ground in our recommendation. Staff thinks that if council would approve the wigwags, the standard that we are proposing is acceptable by us consulting with, say, for example, with Linda Hamilton. We did go out with Linda Hamilton at one point. So we said, where do we find what would be the right spacing for you to be able to navigate through the wigwag? So it's more really of a compromise, but strictly from a standards perspective, we don't recommend really putting in the wigwag. So there's lots of points of views in it. But I guess council will have to decide on that.
Thank you, Mr. Dallas. I just wanted to say it's interesting because I was actually out walking this past summer and I came upon a lady with a twin buggy and she couldn't get around them. And she was not happy about them. So I helped her to maneuver her way around. So they're not wide enough for people, not just with disabilities, but even walking with buggies and children. So I'm glad to hear that you're not really considering those. Did you have something else, Mr. Kawamoto, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to Ms. Durant first, Councillor.
Oh, okay. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Just to reiterate what Supervisor Salas said, the wigwags, through my interactions with both internal stakeholders and external stakeholders, specifically with Mrs. Hamilton, we really felt that the wigwags are not something that should really be supported. We couldn't find anywhere in, manuals. They're very unique to Port Colborne from our understanding, and they don't really comply currently with AODA. And Mrs. Hamilton did struggle very much with them, and like other users as well. So that's all I have to say about those.
Thanks, Mr. Durant. And Mr. Kawamoto.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor and all of council. The three options that staff put down is within the report, options 1, 2, and 3. One being no wigwags. The second one, as Supervisor Salas mentioned, it was kind of the middle ground. However, if we were to, if council were to accept the wigwags in option number 2, just in those existing areas, that they would have to be redone because, as the councillor mentioned, it is difficult to get around. And I would like to reiterate that there are very few, if at all, areas where there are flat crossings where there are currently wigwags in other municipalities. They are usually used in different areas, such as on trails, but on a downhill, as an example, when you're going onto a sidewalk to ensure that you don't go straight onto the sidewalk, just like here, that we don't go straight onto the road. However, in those particular cases, again, it is about a must brake and a must slow down when it comes to those areas. So again, with regard to those, the recommendation is in front of council. However, there is that option and it is discussed within the report. If council would like to make an amendment, that the information is there. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Kawamoto. Councillor Clive.
That's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I have Councillor Beauregard next.
Through your worship to council, there's some people unsure about how other municipalities do it that are along the Friendship Trail. I've fortunately been able to ride the Friendship Trail all the way to St. Catharines, starting in Port Colborne. I don't recall seeing wigwags between here and there, but there were some bollards that were present in Dane City and a little bit in Weldon, but again, there weren't many in my experience. The other thing is, if wigwags don't stop ATVs, because from my understanding, that's kind of what we're really trying to stop, and as well as potential accidents with cyclists, I'm in favor of them being removed, as I know that there's people who are cycling enthusiasts that actively avoid the trail, especially those parts where wigwags are present, because they find them so inconvenient. They will literally rather ride on the road where it's more dangerous than to be on the trail. And then my other point is, well, actually a question for staff. The signage boards, they're being installed at each crossing, correct?
Mr. Kalamota?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the council, that is correct. The blueprint is illustrated within the report. However, specific wording can be changed. This is just a general look at, and guidance to the basics within the sign, example, direction, guidance of trail etiquette, etc. However, the exact wordings have not been finalized, as that would be going through our communications department for finalizing of our specific wording.
So when we say each crossing, I'm looking at the presentation that you sent us, and I believe on one of the slides there's a Friendship Trail overview, and it shows, I'm not sure what slide, it's not numbered. So would it be at every single street that the trail crosses, there would be a sign? Is that correct?
Through the mayor to the councillor, what staff were specifically looking at were more of the rural area crossings where there is a large gap in between the intersections. If there are just short gaps in between the intersections, we would not recommend doing it. But as indicated in the report, those rural areas, because of the large distance in between the intersections, where staff are recommending those for every signs on every intersection there.
Do we know how many of that signs those would be?
Director?
Off the top of my head and reading quickly, I'm not sure if I can, but maybe technologist Durant would know off the top of her head.
Ms. Durant?
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Councillor Beauregard. Yes, so it's Appendix B attached. There is a list that it indicates where we were thinking of putting all the proposed signs. Any of the hoops that are existing, we were hopefully going to create a sign template and insert those where they're already existing. And any of those crossings that don't have one of the hoop designs, we're hoping to be able to place the hoops at those crossings where there's no signage currently. So anybody that would access the trail at all, they should have to go by the rules and etiquettes and any of the requirements that we put forth through the proposal. So there should be, everyone should be well informed of the standards that are in Port Colborne. I believe the total number was 11 total signs proposed.
Yeah, 11 sites, but 21 signs, correct.
Okay, I think that may be a little, that's a lot of signs, but okay. I look forward to hearing what other councillors may have to say, but I am opposed to the wigwags, and I suggest we remove the existing.
And may I suggest you put a amendment on the floor, councillor, to remove item paragraph 2 of the recommendation that council approve the new configuration for existing wigwags. If you want to remove that, I'd suggest you make a motion to that effect. We can vote on that and take that out.
Okay, I will move that that we remove that council approve the new configuration for existing wigwags trail crossing as shown in Exhibit B and Appendix A to Public Works Department Report 2216.
Great, thank you. Councilor Demeray, you second that?
I do.
Great, thank you. So we're now discussing the amendment, Council. So it's paragraph 2. So we're going to remove that, or the motion is to remove that. I apologize. Questions on that specifically? Any questions on that specifically? Councilor Bodnar.
Kind of specifically, maybe. So if we were to send this back to staff, would suggestions then come forward and maybe that would be part of the suggestions rather than pick this thing apart tonight? Just the thought process. So
You're right, Councilor, but at this time we do have a recommendation on the floor, so I got to deal with that first. But we'll take any suggestions this evening. So with regards to this portion of the recommendation, it is to remove it. So I know what you're saying, but if we could deal with this first. If anybody just sees me picking up my phone, it's because I do have a direct connection on my phone with the clerk, just as we move through things. So normally we sit near each other in the chamber, but because we're miles away. I'm just reading her notes here, so thank you for your indulgence. Councillor Demeray, did you have a question on this or comment?
I do on the report in general.
No, but just on the amendment. Just on the amendment.
No
Okay.
question on the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Bruno, you had a question on the amendment?
Yes, just to Councillor Bodner's point, can the mover of the motion, Councillor Bodner wants to have a second look at it and some recommendations. Can the mover withdraw?
Yes, you can ask him to. If the mover wants to withdraw it along with the seconder, I can do that. Yes. Councillor Beauregard, you've been asked if you would do that.
Based on where this is heading, I'm willing to withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you. So, Madam Clerk, you have that. So the amendment has been removed. Councillor Demeray, you're okay with that?
I am, yes.
Okay, so we've had some discussion tonight about certain things that unless if you speak on certain things, then I can't go back to certain things, as you guys know, trying to do this within the rules. So I'm going to go to Councillor Demeray because Councillor Demeray has not spoken at this time. Councillor Demeray, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the person who sat on committees speaking about this particular issue for over 20 years now, both regional committees and Port Colborne committees, I can tell you that there's not one time where I've ever thought a wigwag was a good idea. And in its regional committees would agree with that. When looking at communities outside of Port Colborne and across Ontario at how they dealt with ATVs and that sort of thing on their trails, because we've also looked at that, there is no real solution. There truly is not. The very best thing that anybody can do to provide safety and ease of use on the trail is what has already been started and should be done more of. And as Councillor Bodner said, that's clearing the brush. The sight lines, open them up as far as you possibly can. That is going to be your best protection, and that provides the best ease of use for people on the trail. You will not block motorized vehicles. You might want to try, but it won't happen. You're just going to find creative ways for them to get around it, and it becomes more of a safety issue than it would be in the first place. Enforcement is the only way. That is difficult. It requires, Niagara Regional to be on board with that, and they're not on board with doing any kind of chase situation because that creates yet another safety issue. So, we just have to live with it in the best way that we can. And, trail etiquette is so very important, but wigwags are more of a problem than they are anything else. Bollards in some cases can be helpful. So I wouldn't say no to that, but seriously, clearing the brush, keeping that, safety first attitude is the way to go. As far as motorized vehicles, I don't know how we're going to do this because if you look at what's going on now, even simple bicycles are having motor assists, and it's getting more so all the time. Many of the cyclists on the trails have motor assists, so they're motorized vehicles. It's going to be a challenge, but I think that staff is on the right track. I would agree with Councillor Bodner on the R word. I don't know if I'm last or not. Am I
I
last?
do have one counselor that hasn't spoken,
Okay.
so I may go to the.
So
I
I'll
may
give
go to-
that privilege
I
to
may go to
that
Counselor
counselor.
Danch for that, but we do have to follow protocol and rules.
Okay,
So,
I'll go
take
with
it.
it. I'll go with the last counselor, and that's just all I wanted to say. That I think the work that's been done is good, and it follows the many discussions over the many years. But wigwags, I can't support wigwags, and bollards in some situations can be somewhat helpful. But that's really, it's clear the brush. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Counselor. Counselor Danch, you're the only one that hasn't spoken on this issue. You've heard what some of the counselors have said, so I can actually go to you if you wish to put a referral on the table.
You know, the only thing I have to say, in as much as I like to walk, I have
Before you do that, once you start speaking on the issue, I can't take a referral motion. So I'd rather that be put on the table, and then we can direct some information towards staff. So if that's the will of council, then I'll take that.
I have nothing to say.
No. What I'm asking is, would you put a referral on the floor? No. Okay. Thank you, Councilor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. I did want to circle back just for some clarification. I know we're not here tonight about signage. I'd like Mr. Kawamoto or someone to let me know. You talked about communications coming back with that wording. Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to clarify then, will that signage come back for comments by this council? I had some questions about QR codes, things that are on the sign. Just want to know that there'll be another opportunity. That's sort of question one. Can someone enlighten me on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, as noted before through Councillor Beauregard, although that the particular wording would be going through and being finalized with communication, the type of communication and the methodology of communication, such as the QR code, etiquette, etc., is something that we are looking at standardizing and is discussed within the report. So if there are particular platforms of communication, particular reasons for communication, then absolutely we would take that back if that is not included in the current type of signage there is.
That's great. Perhaps I could, thank you. Perhaps I could just send in my suggestions to you, and if that can be worked out with communications, that might be the best way forward to that.
Thank you.
The other
just for point of clarification is that the QR code is noted within the report to be included in the signage. However, the specifics wording of what would come out when you do scan the QR code would need to be worked out. However, within the report, it does talk about information with regard to different things happening around the city, where one could say park a bike, where one say could go and eat at a restaurant, where one say could park their car for access to the trail, where one, as another note, the signage for emergency access. So those things are all within the QR code. And what we're doing is to take a look to see that there should be a QR code on the sign that would then direct those who scan it to additional information.
Right. I guess I'm still unclear whether there is an opportunity, not tonight, to debate all things about the signage. I just like that opportunity to have that input. I don't want to bog this down any further. But if this is the only time and place, then I'd like to get into that. I prefer it to be something we could deal with later, but I don't know the protocol on which is first.
Through the mayor to the councillor for clarification, councillors are always welcome to give suggestions and pass those along for staff. As we, as in Public Works, work with communications, all suggestions are welcome from those that are on council, those in the public. We do analyze and take all suggestions into consideration.
I'm good with that, but I may not be the only one that wants it. And I guess what I would say is if 4 people want to weigh in on, whether the QR code on the circle route should go to the region and the other QR code goes to our website, and I could go on and on. I want an opportunity for other counselors, if they wish, to weigh in. If you're telling me the only way to weigh in is to send in your suggestions and then it'll just get incorporated, you may have conflicting suggestions. So I'm still not sure if you're telling me that won't come back to council.
So Councillor, before I go back to Mr. Kalamuta, there is one option here, and I'm the only guy that can actually proceed with this. I can step aside, hand the gavel over to Deputy Mayor Beauregard. Deputy Mayor Beauregard can call on me, and then I can proceed, and then we can give more direction to staff. So if everybody wants to allow me to do that, I will step aside. Councillor Beauregard, I'm going to heed the floor to you, and I will put my hand up in order to speak first. Thank you. And we'll also have the CAO and the clerk to guide us, because we're not in the chambers, so we can allow them to speak freely if they need to. Is that all right, Scott?
Sure. I'm just not clear if you want me to go first or if you want to go first.
No, I can go first. I think I've got a handle on this. Councillor Beauregard.
I'll come after you.
Thanks.
Mayor Steele.
Thank you, Councillor. So at this time, I'd like to refer this back to staff. This recommendation with regards to, it comes back to us. Mr. Kalamoto, is the next meeting too soon for the changes that council has been discussing this evening? Also with some other things that they've talked about that can come back. Is next meeting too soon, or is that fine with you?
Through the chair to Mr. Mayor, if we can have a little bit of additional time. There are a number of questions here that we do have to reach out to York Regional Police to get some information and some data. The rest should be fairly easy to do. However, not knowing how long it might take for York Regional Police to get back to us, I wouldn't mind just a little bit of extra time for staff to get that data and analyze that, and then move forward with the report.
Second meeting in February or the first meeting in March, depending on when you get that back. Is that fine?
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so then I'll refer this back to staff to come back to us no later than the first meeting in March. And that staff take the direction that councillors have been discussing tonight, and that council also have the opportunity to submit their comments to Mr. Kalamoto and staff to come back with a report that really looks at what we're doing and what we've asked for tonight. Madam Clerk, am I fine with that? Is there anything you want I should add, just so that we have good clarification?
I think that's good. Maybe the director can comment if he has been given enough direction tonight and knows what tasks he has to come forward with, additional options maybe or anything.
That's you, Councillor Beauregard. It's your floor right now.
I'm sorry, I'm unable to see all the other councillors and whatnot. So, through to Director Kalamoto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I believe that the direction has been given. We've had direction from previous council, which is what we've worked on. Now that we have updated direction from this council, I think there is some changes that we can make. And I believe that just thinking through all of the councilors' recommendations, I believe that there is good direction here. With my understanding, I will again conference with the supervisor and the technologist. And between the three of us, I believe we have appropriate direction to move forward with our understanding.
Okay. Madam Clerk, oh, sorry.
I better have a seconder, and I think Councillor Desmarais was going to second my referral. That was just so that's on the floor. Thank you.
So Councillor Desmarais seconded? Sorry, I can't see.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I seconded.
Okay. So there's no debate, if I'm correct. And
did you still want to, Mr. Mayor, or did you still want to, I thought the CAO was still on the list, but I'm happy with the referral. But didn't know whether you wanted to include him because he was asked to speak.
Is this Scott? Do you have anything to say?
Sure, through you, acting chair, to council. And I guess my thing is more specific to the question about the signage. And I do, I want to walk, so there's a short answer. The short answer is, much like the mayor, I'm talking to staff during the council meeting. They're telling me they have an answer to a question, or they're giving me advice on something, or telling me something they want council to know. Communication staff has said, yes, there is an opportunity to get a final kick at the can when it comes to signage. The long answer is, and I know we talk about this all the time, and I'm almost afraid to say it on the day of my performance appraisal, the difference between operations and governance. So as an analogy, council might approve a tree cutting program for engineering staff, for public works staff. The council should not be on the scene saying, cut these trees first, cut these trees second, cut the ones on this side of the road. So, and I always say, absolutely, you tell us what to do on Tuesday night, we come in on Wednesday morning and do it. We can take advice on the content of the signage, and the converse or the obverse, whatever the right word is also true. We have 9 people here who have an idea, who have input, who hear from the community, and we absolutely want to get that input into our signage. But I do think the best way is through those if you have an idea, if you want to see something on the sign, if you want to link to a certain website or a tourism agency, reach out to staff offline from a council meeting. I don't think it needs to be written into a motion or a resolution or an amendment to a staff report to enshrine some kind of wording into the signs. I do think the sign is a staff responsibility. The content of the signs, our communication staff and our public works staff have a good handle on it. But so not necessarily, council business, but absolutely value your opinion and the opportunity to maybe reach out between the meetings. And Councilor Bruno's correct. If we let 9 folks on council have 9, we might have a 9-page long sign. We might have 9 signs at each crossing. So there is some, content that through our judgment may not make the final copy. But I just want to make sure that we're putting governance in the governance realm and operations in the operating realm. And I think that our staff will be able to take that message away. I see some nodding heads already. And that's my only message, Councilor Beauregard.
Okay. Madam Clerk, no one is allowed to respond to that, correct?
Through the chair, they are able to ask clarification questions, but not provide comment themselves.
Okay. Does anyone have questions? I'm trying to see if I can. No.
I'll help you there. No, there isn't.
Okay. Okay. So all those in favor of the referral? Is that every? I can't see who's all in favor.
Yeah, that is. It would be carried unanimously, Councilor.
Okay. And now I will pass it on back to the mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate that. Good job, Council. A first for all of us being at home like this. And just one more comment on this. Thank you, staff, for everything you've done. And I look forward to this report coming back. But also, if we could, at times when we need to include the active transportation committee with regards to trails, I think it'd be a good idea. And then also our disability committee that we have. I know they haven't all been meeting, but at times we do include them on certain projects, whether it be one of our facilities, but even on the trail, if those can be done at the same time. Okay, so that one's done. That one's referred. Councilor Bruno, quick question, comment?
Yeah, I was just wondering, we heard from a delegation letter from Mr. Comfort, and I'm just wondering if perhaps he could be invited to speak at that committee, or you may want to join the committee, because one thing I think about trails is it will always be evolving like active transportation does. And I think to have someone who's interested in trail, is interested in active transportation, and rather than either a new committee or a subcommittee, perhaps that's the place to take that with the recommendation back. Thank you.
Yep. We can maybe ask staff in the clerk's office when they are putting that out, just to remind Mr. Comfort to keep an eye out for that particular committee. Councilor Demery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick reminder as well. There is still the Greater Niagara Circle Route Committee that meets regionally, and the Regional Active Transportation that also discusses trail use and what's going on in Port Colborne. So there are several levels of government looking at this, and we should be including everybody or getting information from everybody when we're going to go forward with making large change.
Okay, great. Thank you, Councillor. So next is item 8.3. Is municipal drain appointment extensions. Recommendation of the Public Works Department Report 2022-04 be received. Questions I have, or sorry, movers on this, I have Councillor Wells and Bodner. I'm going to go to Councillor Wells first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a quick question that through you to, I believe Alana's still on the, or she was on it. I don't know if she's still, oh, there she is. Okay. Through you to Alana. Alana, I understand the reasoning for the extension. I was just wondering, does this change the proposals? Does this allow the engineering groups that were awarded the programs, the work, does this allow them to charge more for what they've already proposed? And I know and I understand and appreciate that change order would create additional expenses, but my question is more towards we received the proposals, now we have to extend them because we haven't, the proposal hasn't been completed. So is there an additional expense that we would have not seen if these would have been completed on time?
Ms. Vanderveen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Wells. So COVID has posed a huge problem with the Drainage Act. As you know, we have many public meetings, and because of COVID, we have not been able to have these public meetings. There are a number of people within the community that don't have access to technology. So, proceeding forward with those meetings is kind of excluding them immediately, which is not something that I wanted to do. So yes, there will be extra costs, but most of those costs are related to the change orders that have been recognized over the last year or so. A couple of the reports, we were at a certain point where we were sort of ready to proceed. However, MTO stepped in one section and decided or requested much more work. So that changed a lot of what we had already designed. It was taking us in another direction, if you will. A couple of the reports that we have underway, nothing really has happened with those in regards to public meetings. There's been a lot of behind the scenes, and the engineer has been working on those, or has been working on that report to get it to a certain point where we can proceed with a public meeting. But again, because of COVID, it's been a bit of a delay.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bodner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Alana. Alana, there's a lot of drains listed in this report, and that's a good thing. It really is. But I'm not sure that everyone knows that we're actually working on some of these. Like you said, they haven't come to the stage of having public meetings. If you have the report in front of you, I wonder whether you could, in the recommendation, can you just name the drains that are there? Because some of these have come up on emails to me and probably Harry Wells saying that, you guys aren't doing anything with this drain. Well, yes, we are. And here's the proof. But, let's get it out there. Let's not everybody maybe have read the report. You just want to list them. If you could, please. Thank you.
Certainly. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Bodner. EWA Engineering has been appointed or was appointed in 2018 to work on the what is currently known as the Wignall-Michener drain. When that report is complete, we will be dividing that into 3 reports. The main drain will be the Wignall drain. A branch drain of that will be the Port Colborne drain, which extends up into Port Colborne Quarry. And another branch drain will be the Michener drain. The Michener drain has actually already come to council, and we've recently received a tribunal appeal their decision. And we've been notified that those works cannot proceed until the completion of the Wignall drain. So unfortunately, we had one report in the bag, and it has to sit there until we can get another one in the bag. So those particular reports have been ongoing for some time. The original appointment for those was back, I believe, in 2012 to Weeb Engineering, who subsequently went bankrupt. That project was passed on to another engineering firm who politely walked away from the project and decided they no longer had anybody capable of doing the work, which then forced us to find a third engineer for those projects. So as you can imagine, 3 engineers, a lot of work has gone into it, but it's been significant delays. Along with those drains, the Beaver Dam drain is another one that is underway. That report was also given to AMEC Foster Wheeler, I believe, in 2016. My years can be completely off. My apologies for not remembering all of those dates. Again, in 2018, EWA was appointed to pick up what AMEC Foster Wheeler had walked away from. So those reports are ongoing. We've had a number of changes through change orders, through property owners requesting a couple of changes. The big issues that we've had have been with MTO with both of those drains. We were at a certain point, and the works were then steered in a different direction because of things that MTO wanted changed. The next one on my list is the Oil Mill Creek. Oil Mill Creek is in the Cedar Bay area. That one was appointed in 2019 to EWA Engineering. The engineer has been working on that. We've had a survey work. We actually have a tentative meeting scheduled. The notifications will be going out early next week for our first PIC meeting for that public information session, where the engineer will speak to everyone in the watershed who attends the meeting and let them know some of the changes, what's existing and what we're planning to potentially change to hopefully help with the drainage in that area. As we know, it's all very flat through there. And the drain, I believe the slope right now in the low end near the park is 0.008%. If any of you follow any type of grade, you'll know that that's flat. 3 leaves get in the way and suddenly the drain's not flowing anymore. My next one on the list is the Point Abino drain, which outlets in Fort Erie. Again, we will be having a meeting coming up for that one, probably scheduled in the beginning of March. We have done some survey work on that. We've done a little bit of field investigation. And now again, we're looking for that public information session where we can talk with property owners and say, okay, here's what we have. This is the way we're looking to go. What do you think? Does anybody else have any ideas or comments? And we'll proceed forward with that. My next one is the Peter Storm drain, which is in the area north of 2nd Concession and south of 3rd Concession, which again outlets into Fort Erie. No meetings have been scheduled for that one, again, because of COVID. The survey work, for the most part, is complete. And the engineering firm, who is K-Smart Associates out of London, is working on the drawings for that. I will be speaking with that engineer following this meeting, assuming this report is passed, and let him know the changes and let him determine when we are going to be proceeding with that meeting, which we will have to do via Zoom. My other 2 reports, both that have been appointed or that were appointed in 2019 to Spring Associates out of London, are the Biederman drain and the Eagle Marsh drain. The Eagle Marsh drain outlets at what most people may know as Surfside Restaurant over on Lakeshore Road West. And that goes all the way up into the Merritt Parkway and Coronation subdivision. It circles out into Wainfleet and then, back into Port Colborne. So it's kind of a different one because it starts and ends in Port Colborne, but we have a little bit in Wainfleet. So we're dealing with some of the concerns of the quarry and where they're pumping to. We're dealing with the concerns of the outlet at the Eagle Marsh. And the quarry also affects the Biederman drain. Another issue that we're having with the Biederman drain is the bog in Wainfleet. There are a number of individuals that want the alignment of the drain moved, and we're looking into that. However, if I don't have anybody actually petitioning for that, the realignment can't happen. But yeah, so these are all some of the things that have caused some issues with the drain and the reports being completed. But there are, what do I have? 6, 7, 8, 9 of them on the go right now, which is more than I can handle.
Counselor? Oh, unmute yourself. Take your mute off. There you go.
Does that work? Okay.
Works now.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. I think that's the most drains we've had ever at one time, it seems. But that's a lot of work. But it will make a lot of people happy because they've been waiting, for some time for something to happen on those drains. So thank you for letting us know all their names. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Before I go to Director Kalamutu, I did make one mistake here, Council. It is to receive and that the recommendations contained therein be approved. So there's a whole ton of things that staff have come forward for the extensions, which Council has a report in front of them. So I have to add that. Mr. Kalamutu.
Thank you. Through the mayor, just wanted to point out to Council and on mostly for the public, those were a very detailed explanation from the superintendent. If anybody is looking for those specific drains, they are within the report and detailed in a nice summary provided by the superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any further questions on this report? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. On to item 8.4. Administrative Municipal Penalty System AMPS, sharing of hearing officer. Recommendation, the Community Safety and Enforcement Department Report 2022-02 be received. That the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the Administrative Municipal Penalty System Shared Service Agreement for the Appeal Hearing Officer attached as Appendix A to Community Safety and Enforcement Department Report 2022-02. That the bylaw to enter into an Administrative Municipal Penalty System Shared Service Agreement with the town of Pelham, the town of Grimsby, the town of Lincoln, the town of Niagara Lake, the city of St. Catharines, the city of Thorold, and the township of Wainfleet be brought forward. I have Councillor Bodner to move that. If I can have Councillor Clayla second it. Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to whoever can answer this. So my understanding is that we're going to share a person, and the hearings will be held rotating at different municipalities. Is that correct so far?
Chief Lawson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct, Councillor.
Okay,
Councillor.
And it also gives people the option to appear virtually if they dispute, and that's why they're there. My question is, if it's somewhere far, well, say Pelham for one thing, and somebody can't get there, they're not technically literate to maybe, or don't have the equipment to do a virtual appearance, is there an option for them to come to the city or go someplace where they can be helped to get on virtually to dispute the fact that they had a fine?
Chief Lawson?
Have we considered that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Great question. I'm fairly confident that we could help that person out, whether through the library or some means within the city to make sure that hearing happened.
That's great. That's good to know. That's all I got. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Counselor. Any further questions on this one? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Thank you. Next is item 8.6, Chief Administrative Office, Report 2022-13, and that this be received for information. I have Councilors Bagu and Bruno moving that. I'm going to go to Councilor Bagu.
We're 8.6, Mr. Mayor. Sorry.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had 8.5 ticked off, so that's what screwed my head up here. Anyways, I want to thank, I get down here, Mr. Long and Mr. Cotton for a very thorough and transparent report. It explains a lot of things for the resident about the financial legacy of the sales of the monies coming in and what happens with the properties that we sold. My only question is, what is the present balance of the account, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Long? Yep, Mr. Long?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. Through you, Your Worship, to the Councillor, I don't have that specific number, but I can confirm with Finance tomorrow and let Council know.
Councilor Bagu?
I'm good, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Long, for the Bram, for the excellent report. And it really shows when we focus on something and we have the right people doing it, things happen. I just wanted to ask, in the body of the report, it talks about net sales and it speaks to the cost of sales. I'm assuming commissions, legal, et cetera, like that in the one column. Were these also net of property taxes, including region and education, or were they closed? Were they tax sales that we held didn't recoup the taxes and the losses to us and education in the region have been written off? In other
Mr.
words,
Long?
this is truly the net.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I've confirmed with Finance that there are no outstanding tax arrears owing to the city or to the region or to the province for the education portion. So we're all up to date on these properties. So to your question, these are net.
Great, thank you. I think what that answer also points out is that these properties sat with us way too long. The taxes were written off, which took money out of our operating budget or any surpluses. We had to pay the region education, we had to pay education and regional taxes, for which then you have to apply back to get so we front that. Once you get the tax sale, you get your money back. So that was money lost forever into the ether. And so it's a lot of money by not jumping on this. So as much as I am like over the moon about how we disposed of those and what's going to happen to them, it really points out that we need to get on them as soon as they're available, because the loss is, I don't want to think what it was on those over all that time. So just a thank you, a reminder that we need to deal with these as soon as they come up. And hopefully there's a mechanism that as soon as they hit the 3-year or that extra time that they go right to you guys or your designates and get sold. So thanks for the great work. It was a lot easier way to make $602,000 than just the property tax. And those, to me, that's creative, innovative, and frankly, standard procedure now. It should be. So kudos to you all. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. And just to take that a little further, the two paragraphs that really are very telling in this report are on page 2. Prior to the development, staff estimate the municipal value to be $9,500 annually. So that over a 50-year period, we would have received around $467,000. Following development, so based on after we sell them and they're developed, staff estimate the municipal value to be $38,900 annually, which represents a $1.4 million contribution to the city over the 50 years, and also contributions to the water and wastewater budget. So you can see that these developments on no longer being on our books, that they are going to bring more funds into the city of Port Colborne. So again, just like council stated, kudos to staff on this, and kudos to council for the direction they've given staff with regards to lands that we own. Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand to receive. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, council. Item 8.7 is an update on Digital Main Street. The recommendation is that Chief Administrative Office Report 2022-12 be received for information. Moved by Councillors Kalaliff and Bagu. I'm going to go to Councillor Kalaliff.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a comment more than a question. I know a bit about the Digital Main Street because of being on the BIA and being involved with them. And I really wanted to kind of say thank you to everybody, to the team that brought this together. And I wanted to kind of publicize the fact that when I was working with the BIA, or have been working with them, I know that they put out these grant applications for small businesses. And to date, I believe there's been 7 of them for, I believe, around $3,000 each through these 2 grant periods that have happened. And I know I've had people say, oh, well, you know, they haven't given out much. But I wanted to draw attention to the fact that, you know, thank you to staff, because if you read through the report and dig into it, you'll see that they actually contacted 89 small businesses in Port Colborne. And I think that's a real kudo to our team at City Hall. And if anyone is saying, well, we're not doing anything, you have to, you know, the opportunities are there. You have to look for them. You have to respond to them. The staff spoke with them or sent out mailings and all the different things they did to contact them. So to all of you businesses out there, there are possibilities. Reach out to staff. They're willing to work with you. They're willing to help you find these funds that are available. So again, I just wanted to say, thank you to staff and for this. Thank you for this report, because I think it really points out to the good work that's being done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kalaliff. Any further comments from council or questions? Not seeing any. Mr. Long, anybody from your department, any comments? Yourself, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Higginbotham, or Mr. Fusil?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would certainly defer to my colleagues in the division for any comments they would have. This has really been more of a project for Mr. Fusil and Mr. Higginbotham and Mr. Cotton. So great job on the team, or from the team, and happy to turn it over to them for any comments.
Okay. Any further comments, staff? Mr. Higginbotham, anything to add? No? Okay, great. Councillor, you said it all. Seeing no further questions, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 8.8, COVID update for January of 2022. Recommendation that Chief Administrative Office Report 2022-19 be received for information purposes. I'll have Councillors Bagu and Beauregard move that. Councillor Bagu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just a question for our CEO, who's also the chairman of the ECG committee, I guess. The province has already announced some restrictions are going to be lifted on January 31st. And I'm just wondering whether the city's ECG committee will soon be making an announcement of some other opening, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Louis.
Sure, through your worship to Councillor Bagu. That's a great question and a fair question. Of course, this report was written before the province made those announcements. And our last meeting was last Wednesday. We're meeting about once a week right now, sometimes more often if there's something going on that sort of requires some discussion. And we'll meet again tomorrow morning, and I'm sure we'll discuss those announcements. I can tell council that we will absolutely meet the provincial, easing of restrictions around recreation facilities. So you will start to see the Health and Wellness Center open for ice rentals. You'll see people able to gather inside recreation facilities, which for now, most of them are closed because of the time of year. And the YMCA, for example, which we're not responsible, which they make their own decisions about open or closed, I'm sure we'll be deciding to open as soon as they're allowed to or very soon after. The other aspect that sometimes people forget about is us as a workplace. So not only are we the city of Port Colborne, the community, but we're also the workplace, and we're the employers of, over 100 people, part-time and full-time and volunteers, library workers and office workers and water and fire and so on. We do want to be open. We had great plans to open just before Christmas, about a month and a week or two before Christmas, 5 weeks before Christmas. And when I say open, I want to be careful with those words. Just about every single service that the city provides is available, whether it's meeting with the building official for the designs of a building, whether it's, I think even, I sometimes say we're not doing our smoke detector program, but the fact is, if you call the fire chief or his admin staff, they'll get out there and make sure your smoke detector is working. I can't think of a single thing that you can't get. The problem is you can't walk up to the front doors of City Hall and tug on the door and have it open. Part of the reason is because some of our staff are deployed in other facilities or at their house with a laptop, and they're still performing their 7 hours or 8 hours of work a day, depending on their schedule. And it's done over email or phone calls or what have you. And if you do tug on the doors of City Hall and it were to open, that person might not be at their desk because they might be at a different building. The second reason is so that our workers don't spread COVID among each other. We have had, and I think our HR person is on the phone, and I hope she can back me up on this or on the Zoom, 0 workplace transmission. I can no longer say, I used to say very proudly, we have had no positive cases among our workers. We have had a few. We've also had some people who had to take time off, not because they had COVID, but because they were in contact with somebody, a family member or someone that they were in the same space as. And we want to keep those people out of the workplace so that the rest of the workers can keep coming in and maintain what are essential services. So my goal is to get that opened as fast as possible. In order to do that, I'm sorry this answer is so long. In order to do that, we've made a color code for our own internal use. This isn't for restaurants. This isn't for, stores in the city. This is for our workers. Red, which is what we are now, which is virtually closed, I guess. Orange, yellow, and green. So I want to move us to orange and yellow as fast as I can. I can't say what the date is today. I can have that meeting tomorrow and give council a weekly email that I always do on Friday and tell you what sort of date we're tracking towards. If it's the start of February or some date past the start of February, where we'll have the ability for our residents to go into the library in person, to go into City Hall and make a payment or buy a bus pass or what have you. You still can buy those things, but it's on an appointment basis. So I hope that answers the question. I'm sorry it's vague, but the meeting it's just a question of timing. The meeting happens to be tomorrow instead of before the council meeting we're having today.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Councillor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Mr. CAO. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Our last item is item 9.3. This is being pulled so that a motion can be put on the floor to actually support the correspondence. This is correspondence from Lisa M. Thompson, the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, and I'm going to go to Councillor Bodner. Councillor Bodner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had our challenges with drainage with the railways in the past and probably still do. I see Alana there, but I know it's been a struggle in a number of instances. And this is after CN Rail told municipalities that they weren't required to pay their fair share for drainage because they were a federal agency. Since then, they have been corrected and corrected by, sorry, Alana, am I stealing your thunder? Did you want to do all that? Okay, sorry. Okay, so quickly, it says there's a template letter in here which can be modified by each municipal council. It is intended to amplify support of the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, dated December 23rd. As the minister states in her letter, given that federally regulated railways are indeed subject to the Drainage Act, we expect CN Rail to pay its costs as assessed under the Drainage Act and not to hinder the progress of these projects or others in the future. Mr. Mayor, I'd like us to support that. Send that letter. It asks to send it to AMO and other recipients copied on this. And I look for council support to do that.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Councillor Bruno will second that. Further questions? Councillor Wells, further question or comment?
Sorry, Mayor. No questions, comment. Fully support.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Councillor. Ms. Vanderveen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for supporting this. I wanted to just bring to your attention why I feel so strong about this and that we should support it. The most recent project that we have completed or in the process of completing is the Young Hop Wagner Drain. CN, for some reason, allowed the municipality of Port Colborne to complete the work, whereas a number of other municipalities were not allowed to complete their works on CN property. CP is also assessed on this particular drain. CP had no concerns. However, CP, their invoiced amount is going to be much smaller than what CN's is. And not to alarm you, but I think that you should know this number. Currently, this number is only a soft number. It's not carved in stone. But CN is currently looking at a bill of $425,000 for this particular drain. So we really need your support so that we're not stuck holding this bill at the end of the project.
Great, thank you to staff. Mr. Kalamutu, you had your hand up earlier. Anything to add?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to you, Mr. Mayor, and the rest of council, just wanted to point out Superintendent Vanderveen is just giving point of clarification for some just additional information that we recently calculated with regard to this particular item on council.
Great, thank you. Councilor Bruno?
Feel free to rule me out of order on this, Mr. Mayor, but can I ask about that potential bill while it's not the subject of CN paying, but it's specific to that project?
I'll give some leeway. Ms. Vanderveen? Or ask Ms. Vanderveen your question.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ms. Vanderveen. Should CN balk at that? Is that picked up by the general taxpayer or the remaining people in the drain watershed?
Ms. Vanderveen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruno. There are a couple of other municipalities that have invoiced CN and they have received no funds. Their amounts were to the tune of about $18,000, not near as scary as a number as ours. We've had 5 rail crossings on this particular drain, and it's just been cost after cost that has built up. So can we do anything if they refuse the payment? I believe we can. It can go on their tax bills. And another municipality is in the process of doing that. And I don't know, can the municipality take over a railway for tax arrears? I don't know how that works. That's a little bit above me.
We can add it to our,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, we can add it to our inventory, Alana, of rail that we actually own. So we are a rail operator. So I don't think Mr. Kawamoto likes that idea though. Thank you, Council. Just to reiterate something with regards to this is the CAO and I had a meeting probably in 2020, I believe it was, a virtual meeting, Zoom meeting with the former president who's now retired of CN and how they were making major changes and how they were going to deal with municipalities. So they assured us, we were actually able to speak at that meeting, and they assured us they'll be working with us in a better fashion. It did start out that way. Mr. Kawamoto and I had an issue with, I believe it was Brookfield Road, Mr. Kawamoto, a railway crossing. Things started off well. It kind of went off the rails, no pun intended. And then it quickly came back and they did do the repairs to that, but with a little prodding from Mr. Kawamoto's department. So we do thank CN for their work here. We do appreciate that they are changing their tune in a lot of ways and how they deal with our public works department. But I can publicly state here, CN will be paying that bill. They owe us the money. They will be paying it. We will take it to whatever level we have to, whether it's through my and the CAO's office. A bill is a bill is a bill. The taxpayer, Port Colborne, will not be caught up in this and having to pay that. So I can put that out there publicly that we will be contacting CN. If we have to go to the president again, we certainly will do that. So I thank Ms. Vanderveen and her department for this, and Mr. Kawamoto through Public Works. CAO, anything to add to that?
No, I would have said, you couldn't have said it better myself. Perfectly summarized.
Great, thank you. Any further questions, Council? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, Council. Okay, so that ends the items. There are no motions this evening. Does any councillor have any notices of motion? Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a notice of motion. At the next meeting, I would like to put a motion forward with regards to the dissolution of the Ontario Land Tribunal. Council received emails earlier this week on this matter, and I think I would like to put that forward at the next meeting.
Okay, so you'll work with the clerk with that and have that included in the package, correct?
I will, yes.
Great. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Any other notices of motion? Seeing none. We have two sets of minutes of boards. We have the Environmental Advisory Committee minutes from October 13th of 2021 and the Port Colborne Public Library Board minutes of November 2nd, 2021 and December 7th, 2021. If I can have Councillors Desmarais and Beauregard move those minutes. Are there any questions on either of those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried unanimously. Bylaws, and just to confirm, under bylaw 20.4, there wasn't an addendum put out by staff, including maps on item 20.4. So just to make sure everybody's aware of that from the original release of the agenda this evening, those have been added. So we have items 20.2, 20.3, 20.4, 20.5, and 20.6. I have Councillors Bodner and Wells moving the bylaws. Any questions to any particular bylaw? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Again, carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. Before we end this evening, we are going to go in camera, Council, assuming you guys voted in favor of this. So we will not be coming out and going back into our WeeStream. So when we do end this portion, and we will take a break, we won't be coming back out. So at this time, I'm going to have it moved by Councillors Bruno and Danch that Council do now proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters. Item 21.1, Chief Administrative Office Report 2022-15, concerning a human resources update pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsections 2392B, personnel matters about a identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, subsection 2392E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and subsection 2392F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And item 21.2, Corporate Services Department Report 2022-06 concerning the performance review and goals of the Chief Administrative Officer pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsections 2392B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Questions, council? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. So on behalf of council and staff, everyone watching from home this evening, we thank you and please stay safe, and we'll see you at our next Zoom meeting. So councilors, it's 8:31. We will meet at 8:45 on our other Zoom invite to go into in camera. Thank you.